Hello everybody, this is Mr. Laubach. Thank you for joining me. In this video, I am going to go over the different types of British colonies in North America. After I go over that, I'm going to go over how British colonies compared to French, Dutch, and Spanish colonies. So let's get started. The first type of British colony, and these are in no particular order, was the charter colony. These colonies were established through a grant or charter given by the English monarch to a company or group of settlers. The charter outlined the colony's geographic boundaries and specified the governing structure. They had a considerable degree of self-governance. The colonists elected their own governors and legislatures or lawmaking body, and they had significant autonomy from the crown. Examples of charter colonies were the Massachusetts Bay Colony, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Another type was the proprietary colony. These colonies were granted by the English monarch to one or more proprietors who had full governing rights. The proprietors were essentially landlords who controlled the land and government. The proprietors appointed governors and had significant authority over the colony's administration. However, they often allowed for some form of representative government. Some examples of proprietary colonies were Pennsylvania, granted to William Penn, Maryland, granted to Lord Baltimore, and the Carolinas, which was granted to a group of elite nobles. The third type of colony was a royal colony. These colonies were directly controlled by the English crown. Over time, many colonies that started as charter or proprietary colonies became royal colonies. The king appointed the governor and had a say in the colony's laws and administration. However, local assemblies often existed, providing a form of self-governance to the colonists. Some examples of royal colonies were the Virginia colony, which actually became a royal colony in 1624, New York, Georgia, and New Hampshire. Each type of colony had a different degree of autonomy and governance structures, which influenced their development, politics, and relationships with the English crown. Now let's compare the English colonies with the French, Spanish, and Dutch. Each empire had distinct characteristics in their American colonies. The governance structure, economic focuses, and differing goals and practices of their parent countries. Let's first do an overview of English colonies. The economy. Diverse economies, including tobacco, rice, indigo, and cotton in the form of agriculture, trade, and manufacturing. The New England colonies focused on shipbuilding, fishing, and trade, while the southern colonies were heavily agrarian with plantation economies, where slavery was a big part of it. The middle colonies, like Pennsylvania, were a mix of what life was like in the New England colonies and the southern colonies. The settlements in English colonies. There were large numbers of settlers, including families, which led to the establishment of permanent settlements. Emphasis on creating new communities and religious freedom. Relations with Native Americans. Initially, cooperation between the English colonists and the Native Americans existed, but eventually there were frequent conflicts as English settlers wanted to expand their territory. In short, many of the English colonists and the British Crown basically wanted the Native Americans out of the land so the colonists could inhabit it uninterrupted. Now let's talk about the French colonies, also known as New France. The governance. Centralized under the control of the French crown, French colonies had less autonomy for settlers compared to English colonies. French colonies' economy. Focused on fur trades, fishing, and later sugar plantations in the Caribbean, there was a lesser emphasis on agriculture in North America compared to the English colonies. There were fewer settlers, primarily men involved in fur trade, and less emphasis on large-scale permanent settlements like in the English colonies. Relations with Native Americans. The French generally had better relations with Native Americans due to trade alliances and less territorial encroachment. They set up more outposts or temporary settlements as opposed to the English permanent settlements that were very high in population. Spanish colonies, also known as New Spain. Governance. Spanish colonies were highly centralized under the Spanish crown with strict control by appointed governors and viceroys. The economy in New Spain. Extraction-based economy focused on mining, gold and silver, agriculture, sugar and coffee, and the encomienda system, which was a form of forced labor of Native Americans. The settlements in New Spain included large urban centers. Examples would be Mexico City in current-day Mexico, and Lima, which is in modern-day Peru, and missions aimed at converting Native Americans to Christianity. Settlements often included military forts as well in New Spain. New Spain's relations with Native Americans. The encomienda system led to exploitation and harsh treatment of Native Americans, leading to frequent revolts and resistance by Native Americans. Finally, let's take a look at the Dutch colonies. Governance, controlled by the Dutch West India Company initially, with later oversight by the Dutch government, focused on trade and profits. Dutch colonies economy, primarily focused on trade, especially in fur and other goods. Established trading posts and commercial hubs like New Amsterdam, which would later become New York after the British took it over in the 1600s. Dutch colonial settlement. Smaller settler population focused on trade rather than large-scale agriculture. Dutch colonies comprised diverse groups including the Dutch, Germans, Scandinavians, and others. Relations with Native Americans. Trade-oriented relationships between Dutch colonists and Native Americans existed initially, and the relations were pretty good. But conflict arose as Dutch territorial claims expanded into Native American territory. These differences in governance, economic focus, settlement patterns, and relations with Native Americans shaped the development and legacy of each colonial empire in the Americas. So I hope you're able to learn more about colonial settlements in the New World. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of the day.